Yugioh is one of those free-to-play servants that I've really been looking forward to getting over on the NA side of things, not because I need her necessarily as, say, a looping servant, but I have very fond memories using her because she was one of the first servants I got over on the JP side of things when I decided to start playing over there, and she was an absolute massive help. You may have heard me or other people say in various like Discords or other YouTube channels say that she's a pretty solid looper, and yeah, she is. She's not going to replace your Summer Ibuki or your Summer Masashi or anything like that, but for a free-to-play servant, she is built rather well. I mean, she has literally everything you would want a solid looper to have, maybe outside of just not having an NP gain skill. That's maybe something they could give her in the future, but even outside of that, she's absolutely fine. And so we're going to talk about her in today's video and why you absolutely must get your grubby little mitts on this free-to-play servant because she is just that dang good. But as always, if you find this video to be helpful, make sure you drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel as it helps me out more than you know, and it's absolutely free. But with that being said, let's go ahead and start getting into her kit, starting off with her hits. And there's not a whole lot that I actually want to talk about when it comes to her hits over here. As you can see, she has a pretty standard deck, I suppose. Maybe it's a little bit weirder because she's rocking the double quick cards instead of the double buster cards, but that's fine. I mean, 4 hits on the Quicken Arts with 0.41% NP gain is kind of why maybe you could give her an NP gain buff sometime in the future, because it does come up sometimes if you're bringing her to more boss fights, challenge quests, stuff where you're going to be using her face cards. I mean, her arts crits are fine, but again, you really don't get a whole lot of refund back on the quick cards, which go figure, art servant's not refunding a whole lot on the quick cards, but an NP gain buff would also be nice for looping, as sometimes you'll notice that she only loops back like 70 to 80% depending on what class of servant you're fighting. But the main thing I actually want to harp on over here are the passive skills, because she has some pretty strong passives. I mean, the territory creation and magic resistance, that's just kind of like normal stuff. Ooh, cool, debuff resistance and a passive arts buff, those are both just fine on their own. But notably, she is just immune to poison and burn, which I know isn't the craziest thing, but that does come up whenever you get into a boss fight where they like to spam a bunch of, like, say, on attack burn effects or on attack poison effects. That can be really annoying, and sometimes you might lose a servant because they just are taking way too much damage over time, and the fact that she cuts off 2 of them, that's super convenient. We absolutely love to see that. The other thing that you might notice over here is that she's getting some weird quick buff. Now, don't really worry about the quick buff or the quick crit damage. The main thing you need to keep track of is the fact that she gives herself the wild beast trait. That'll come up for her skill 3, so let's just go ahead and start getting into her skills, starting off with skill 1. This is just one of those good skills, right? You're getting a 30% arts buff for 3 turns, you're getting a 50% power mod against divine enemies for 3 turns, and you're smacking curse on all enemies for 5 turns on a 6-turn cooldown. Now, you might look at that curse and be like, oh, ZTL is going to say this is not all that great. You know, oh, it's just a little bit of damage over time. We all know that he's not the biggest fan of that. And while I usually am not the biggest fan of damage over time, curse has gotten a bit better because during the Wangina World Tour, that is the event next year that takes place right after the summer event, we are going to be getting a CE called the Method to Walk on the Stars, which is an attack CE, which means it's very beneficial to max level that. It's free from the event. It starts you off with 50% gauge, and most importantly, gives you a 25% power mod against cursed enemies. So somebody like Yugioh massively benefits from something like that because she can actually get double power mods once that CE releases, and because she does so much curse everywhere, it's really easy to proc. So it might not be the best right now, but once we get that CE, it'll actually be a bit better. The Divine Power mod is obviously very strong as well, as there are a pretty decent chunk of Divine Servants and just random Divine enemies you might find in free quests. And then the Arts buff is just, you know, increasing the NP gain of her Arts cards, making her loop a little bit easier and giving her a little bit more damage. Moving over to her second skill, this is going to be a 30% battery that specifically also increases the star weight and crit damage of her Arts cards by 100% for 1 turn on a 6-turn cooldown. Now, if you're going into farming nodes, you're just going to use this to top yourself off a little bit. 30% battery is good. Not as busted as, say, a 50% battery, obviously, but 30% is still good considering she's an art servant and she's probably not going to need that 50% refund anyway because she should be looping back enough to where a 30% battery is good enough. At least from the last 2 years of using her, I could say that 30% battery is good enough as long as you're not bringing her to anything too crazy. But if you are going into more of a challenge quest, do not waste the arts crit damage over here, because that is the same level of crit damage that Scotty gives for quick units, right? That's the same thing as hero creation that both Proto Merlin and OG Merlin have. That 100% crit damage will be really insane. And again, because crits massively increase the NP gain of that card whenever you hit that crit, you can also save this for when you want to refund all of your NP back whenever you have 1 or 2 of your arts cards available. You can not only do a butt ton of damage, but you can also massively use this as kind of a pseudo secondary battery in the way that you'll get 30% immediately and then more than likely refund the rest of your NP gauge off of your 2 arts crits that you're going to be doing. Again, assuming you find 2 arts crits. But don't just look at it for the battery. The secondary effects on this are actually very strong. Finally though, let's move over to her third skill, which I just like as kind of a nice way to round out her kit. It gives the entire party 20% attack for 3 turns, and it increases the critical damage of wild beast allies by 50% for 3 turns. And you'll remember her last passive makes her a wild beast type character, right? So she's going to get that 50% crit damage, which, so if you don't have the second skill up, you at least have the equivalent of a waiver crit skill, which is still very, very strong. And then you're going to bomb 10 stars, which isn't the craziest. I mean, it's better to have some stars than no stars, but come on, maybe we could have bombed like 20, or maybe we could have had like 10 stars every turn for 3 turns. That's always very helpful when art servants have a way to regenerate stars like that. I mean, hey, look at how good Estrella is as an art crit servant. But overall, as you can see, not the craziest kit, but it is good. She has a lot of the fundamentals, a battery, the ability to do crits, good self buffs, a good power mod, and something that will age very well in her ability to really just kind of smatter curse on people so she can do a lot of damage, which she'll also be doing if we want to swap over to her NP over here, where she's also going to be stacking 10% NP damage for 3 turns, which is very strong if you have Oberon. Because remember, Oberon's third skill overclocks how strong your NP damage skills are going to be. And the fact is, by wave 3, you're going to have a 30% NP damage buff plus the 20% NP damage buff from Oberon's first skill himself at the very least. That's basically like just having Heaven's Feel that is going to get overclocked by his third skill. And then she's also going to inflict curse on all the enemies and then hit them with evil curse. So now you're doing even more damage over time. So she actually is a very solid option for any weird challenge quests where the enemies might have like 90% or 99% damage reduction, where you're really going to be relying on damage over time. She can help speed that along by increasing how much damage curse actually does to enemies, especially when her first skill smacks it on them for 5 turns. So again, overall, not the most broken servant you've ever seen, right? Like obviously, if you summon for any of the insane gacha servants like Ibuki, if you summon for Space Ishtar, Summer Kama, you know, even Summer Masashi, or plan on summoning for Ruler Melusine next year, you know, they're all going to be better than Io, obviously. But as a free-to-play servant, something you can just get for just playing the event, and as I talked about yesterday, this is a good event, you know, the event's not bad at all whatsoever. She's pretty solid, right? Like, this is a servant you might actually crack out if, say, you want to go farm a node and maybe your Ibuki doesn't have the Earth Power mod for that node, but it does feature some divine enemies, you might actually break her out over there. She's one of the better free-to-play loopers that we have. And I highly encourage that you make sure that you stay up to date on this event, that we have 3 weeks, so do not slack, do not miss out on getting such a godly free-to-play servant, because she's still not back for the Evocation Festival. And Lord knows when she'll actually be back over here on the NA side of things, if she's still not even back on the JP side of things. So make sure you bag her now and don't miss out. And I guess if that's just not enough to convince you to go for the servant, you can also do the 90++ for the current event, you know. So if you want to just do quick and easy farming where you get all of the match to drop at once and you can do it just quick and painless, no huss, no fuss, then maybe that'll convince you to go ahead and go and farm the servant. Make sure you stay on top of it. But with all that being said, let me know your thoughts on Io in the comments down below. Again, if you find this video to be helpful and or entertaining, I'd appreciate a like on the video and a subscription to the channel, as it does help me out more than you know. But with all that being said, I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace, late guys.